While our panelists are getting seated, I've come up with a new goal for this panel, and that is my desire to get as big of an audience reaction as the water bottles did. So that is going to be the bar here today. Thank you all for coming today. I see many familiar faces, and I see a lot of new faces, and we are going to rock and roll on this panel, and I'm so delighted with the four women that we have. So this will be the grand finale of our program here. And before I introduce our panelists, I do want to reflect on the historic nature of Mayor Cullyher's participation in this event. Just think about the fact that this woman was born in Laos. She lived in a bamboo hut until Cullyher's family came to the United States when she was just 3 years old. And so now, nearly 50 years later, this woman is mayor of St. Paul. So let's give her a round of applause in absentia. That's a victory worth declaring. And as Cully noted in her remarks today, before she was a public official, she was very successful in business, and she managed a portfolio of $240 million during her 11-year tenure at American Express. And as a St. Paul and Ramsey County property taxpayer, I'm thrilled that this woman has a business background as she takes on the city budget, and there may be others in the room who agree with me. A round of applause for that. So when you look at Cullyher's career, and when you look at the careers of our four panelists, all of them have a record of producing results that propelled their careers forward. These women, they also were willing to take risks, to accept challenges, and to view a range of work experiences as learning opportunities. We just heard from Anu Pasricha from St. Catherine University that women have been gaining ground on corporate boards. It's somewhat remarkable to think where we were 10 years ago that women now do hold 1 out of every 3 board seats for Minnesota-based public companies. And all 4 of today's panelists serve on public company boards. Each of them started their career journeys in very different places, but they all discovered how to develop their talents and identify companies that would embrace their willingness to lead. So now on to my panelist introductions. To my immediate left, Dorothy Bridges exemplifies how much progress can occur in one lifetime. Believe it or not, this is a true fact. No alternative facts here, by the way. Dorothy grew up in New Orleans and attended a segregated grade school. Actually, her first cousin integrated one of the public schools in New Orleans. Banking was Dorothy's path to leadership. She got a financial services job right after graduating from the University of Montana, and in the middle of her career, she became well known in the Twin Cities as the CEO of Franklin National Bank. She later served as a senior vice president for the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, and she's now the CEO of the Metropolitan Economic Development Association. Dorothy joined the U.S. Bancorp Board of Directors in 2018. Next to Dorothy is Pilar Cruz. Pilar grew up in Colombia, earned her undergraduate degree in economics in Latin America, and later earned an MBA from the University of Michigan. Pilar built an impressive career over 24 years at Cargill. She moved several times for a variety of positions at Cargill, including to Canada, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and the United Kingdom, and that's not all. After starting as a Cargill business analyst in 2002, by 2017, 15 years later, she became president of Animal Nutrition and Health. In 2019, she became group president of Aqua Nutrition, and in 2021, she became Cargill's chief sustainability officer. Pilar is a member of Cargill's executive team, and since 2017, she has been a board director for Donaldson. Sitting next to Pilar is Linda Findley. Congratulations, Linda, on just marking 1 year as the president and CEO of Sleep Number. I know you've been busy. A round of applause for Linda on this first year as CEO. She grew up in North Carolina and earned bachelor's and master's degrees in her home state in journalism and public relations. After working in communications jobs early in her career, Linda took a leap of faith and moved to Hong Kong without a job. More about that later. She worked for Alibaba in Hong Kong for 3 years and then returned to the US. She was the COO of Etsy just before Blue Apron hired her in 2019 to become CEO of Blue Apron. Her 5-year track record there brought her to the attention of Sleep Number when the company needed a turnaround. Since 2018, Linda has served on the Ralph Lauren board. Next to Linda is Terry Rasmussen. She is the president and CEO of Thrivent. I did a profile of Terry last year, so I know she grew up on a farm in west central Minnesota and attended a one-room schoolhouse for grades 1 to 6, no K through 12 at Breck for Terry, and here she is sitting as CEO of Thrivent. Terry developed an adventurous spirit as a girl, which served her well in life and work. She's traveled to all 7 continents, and she advanced in her career by saying yes to difficult assignments. Terry spent the bulk of her career at American Express and Thrivent. She holds an undergraduate degree in accounting and earned her law degree from the University of North Dakota. She joined Thrivent as general counsel in 2005 and worked her way up to CEO in 2018. Terry is chair of the board of H.B. Fuller, which she joined in 2020, and then I found out a new fact about Terry just before this event began, and she may be the only woman, the only human in this room who has this distinction. Yes, Terry Rasmussen met with Pope Leo in Rome, so if you'd like to see the photo of it, talk to Terry after the event, and a round of applause to welcome our panelists. So first, I'd like to talk about risk-taking. I've been reporting on women in leadership for many years, and sometimes you'll hear people say, well, women simply need to take more risks. So I'm going to turn to Linda first. As I indicated in your introduction, relatively early in your career, you chose to move to Hong Kong without a job. Why did you take that risk, and how did it affect your career going forward?
Sure. So I started my career in financial communications and sort of crisis communications, did a lot of IPOs, a lot of company divestitures, a lot of unique situations in global companies. And I was running a P&L, running several offices, but I really wanted to move into operations inside of a company. And I was living in Silicon Valley at the time, which is a little notorious for being fairly closed on who gets to do what. And frankly, was having a hard time. I was sort of patted on the head and told to go sit in the corner and do my thing. So I said, okay, I'll just leave the country. I had already been doing a ton of global work for a long time, and I knew that, I had been doing a lot of work in Asia and Europe, everywhere, but I was particularly fascinated with what was happening in Asia. I was in technology, and and sort of financial technology and other things like that. And I just thought it was a really interesting place to be. And so I said, well, there's a 90-day visa. I'll move there and see what happens. If I don't have a job in 90 days, I'll come back. And so I got 3 offers, and I took the lowest paying of those offers, which was Alibaba, because I had been working for Yahoo when Yahoo made the investment in Alibaba, and I had a lot of faith in what Alibaba could do as a business, and a lot of faith in Jack Ma. And also, frankly, he was the person who said, I'll do communications. We have some things to do. Give me a year, and I'll move you into a more strategic operational role. And we did 5 acquisitions in that first year, and he made good on his promise. And so I was able to really kick off my operations career there by putting myself in a pretty uncomfortable and different, but ultimately life-changing circumstance, and I've never stopped taking risks since then.
Pilar, in your long tenure with Cargill, what would you say would be an example of a risk you took? What was the result, and why are you not afraid to take risks?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having us today. It's so great to see a lot of familiar faces of people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years, and a lot of new faces that I've had a chance to meet with today. So when I think about the question, Liz, I have to think about the multiple international moves that I've had with the company. In my 24 years with the company, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work and live in 6 different countries. And that's not just me. I moved with my husband, with my 2 children, which brings a lot of complexity, both on the professional side as well as the personal side. And this is in addition to the multiple moves I had within the US. When I think about these experiences, there's probably 3 themes that stand out. One is resilience. The second one is having a growth mindset. And the last one is staying open to opportunities, even when I didn't think I was ready. So let me unpack these briefly today. So the first one, as it relates to resilience, I would say every move, every new job brought a new set of complexities and challenges and change. Whether it's a new market, a new country, new language, new customers, new set of competitors, and you quickly realize that change is not an interruption to your career, change is your career. And resilience is not about choosing the easy path. It's about feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable. It is about stepping out of the comfort zone and being able to lead. And the theme around thinking about change as an opportunity as opposed to a threat has been a consistent theme in my career, which I think has helped a lot. The second theme is about learning, curiosity, and maintaining that mindset of you don't have to know it all, but you have to learn quickly. So with every move, just connecting with my team, leaning on my team, asking questions, touring all the manufacturing facilities, meeting with customers really quickly equipped me with the knowledge and the expertise that I needed. But again, you gotta learn really quickly. And the third theme, I would say, is staying open to opportunities, which I'm sure it is the case for many of us. When the opportunity came to me, I thought to myself, me? Do you think I'm ready? And the reality is the company thought I was ready. So I would just say leadership is not about checking the boxes and thinking that you need to fulfill all the expectations of the role, but it's actually about learning, resilience, adaptability, being able to lean on your team, being able to empower yourself with the confidence that you need to be able to lead through complexity and ambiguity. And that, to me, sums it all as it relates to taking risks.
Terrific. Thank you, Pilar. Terry, I'd like to turn to you now. In your career, I know you developed a reputation for a willingness to take on tough problems. So why did you proceed ahead with taking on some of these problems, even though there was a possibility of failure? But how did you distinguish yourself by always being the person who would say yes?
So I think at first it starts with you asking yourself, what brand do you want at work? And in my particular case, I was blessed because I was given the opportunity to solve really hard problems because I enjoyed that. I like learning. And I had that reputation. So if there was a really nasty problem, give it to Terry, she'll figure it out. And I enjoyed that. And I never thought about failure. I actually just thought exclusively about learning. And because I am a lifelong learner and really focusing on, I used to tell myself, what's the worst that can happen? I learn something. And so if you can have that mindset where you're curious and pay attention to the brand that you're building in the workplace, because if you're intentional about building that brand, opportunities will come to you. People need people that can solve problems. They need people that are quick learners. They need people that think differently and can challenge the status quo. And if you start to build your brand about that, the opportunities will come.
So Dorothy, in terms of your career, as I indicated in the introduction, you spent many years in banking. You excelled in banking. You could have continued in that role, yet you chose to take a job with the Federal Reserve, and you're working with META now. Do you think stepping away from banking was a risk, or what risk would you like to reflect on?
So I'm not away from banking. I'm still a big
You're banking in a different way.
in a different way.
Right.
Even with Federal Reserve, it was banking in a different way. I was on the other side of the table, a place that I thought I'd never be. And banking as a profession or a career of mine was serendipity. I never dreamed I would be a banker. I just happened to apply for a job as a teller, got turned down.
You and Richard Davis both started at Tellers, and look at where it led.
Absolutely, we're kindred spirits. So I got turned down for that job, but really talked to a recruiter after I graduated college and got my first banking job as a middle management trainee. And in those days, financial institutions were investing a lot more than they do today in the development and training of new employees. So I was lucky enough to spend an entire year learning the ropes of banking. And the risk that banks are facing today is just the whiplash of regulatory and in the regulatory environment. Sometimes it's heightened regulatory scrutiny. There's a pullback these days in some instances, but it is adding new kinds of stress on the regulatory front. It's always about how you rise to meet that challenge of making sure that the bank stays as stable as it can be from a performance expectation against the backdrop of all of this regulatory scrutiny that they have been faced with over the years. As a board member, there's even a different kind of risk, and that is a risk of governance and expectations that you are there to support and improve shareholder value, but you're also there for other key stakeholders like the employees. There is a lot that's going on these days in the banking environment when you think about employees and what they have to face. There's also a good deal going on with leadership of financial institutions these days in terms of improving shareholder value, and you only have to look at bank stock shares to see how volatile they have been. So the risk has been different with each professional experience that I faced with the banking industry. As a president of the bank, it was about making sure you were on the right path to improve performance and stabilize your staff. As a regulator, it's about making sure that you're minding the store as the federal government and other regulators want you to. And as a board member, it's about governance. So they come with their own individual risks.
Correct. Great, thank you, Dorothy. I'd now like to talk a little bit about profit and loss experience. And so for women in our audience who one day would like to be a company CEO or in another C-suite role, I know that many women who have reached the C-suite have said women need to get profit and loss experience. And often in public companies, there are few women at the top of corporations because many women didn't get that key P&L experience running a business segment early enough in their career. So I'd like to turn to the two CEOs on the panel, Terry and Linda, and I'd like to hear your advice of how women early in their careers or also mid-career, how do they position themselves for P&L roles? And I'll start with Linda.
Sure. I think that it is really about raising your hand for a lot of different things, and making sure that you're inserting yourself, I would say, pretty assertively into different opportunities, whether it's sort of volunteering to take those on or other aspects. But for me, it was all about how can I get as much experience in different parts of the organization and be seen as the person who understands how to break down silos and connect teams. Because most companies have silos, whether they want to admit it or not, and in order to be able to get P&L responsibility, you have to be able to work across silos. And potentially remove those silos. So I intentionally, my career change wasn't just about a career change once, it was more about how do I get as much exposure to different areas of the business as possible so that I can be seen as somebody who can connect enough people to not only have P&L responsibility, but to actually facilitate collaboration across those silos a lot more easily. So for me, it's that, and I love what Terry was saying about learning, because that's who I am too. I think learning all the time is extremely important, but it's also fun. And being able to learn different aspects of a company and understand a business from the ground up is an asset in being able to say, I have the ability to manage this P&L and I have the ability to run this part of the business. So, so it's essentially the opposite of stay in your lane. It's really about how do you find out how to be the connector and how do you make sure that your desire to continue to accelerate is known and earn that ability by showing how much you know about the business from end to end.
Terry?
So in my particular case, certainly as the general counsel, I did not have P&L experience, but I'd like to say that I was a business person's lawyer, and so I really understood the business. But I'm going to take you back to 2015 when my boss at the time, who was the CEO of Thrivent, and I was still the general counsel, we were in his office on a late Friday afternoon doing org design, which is a little scary when you think of the CEO and the general counsel doing that without a CHRO in the room. But there came a point in time where we were drawing the new organizational structure, and I finally said, well, let's talk about people. And he said, okay. And I said, well, I assume you want this person to run the core business. And there was silence. And he said, no, I'd really like you to do that. And I, basically got this sheer look of terror in my face at that point in time. And he said, no, we can make it work. You don't have to leave your general counsel job. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to take this job, I'm not having two jobs like that. I'm sorry. And so I said, let me think about it. And, I thought about it and came back and said, yes, I want to make the leap. And because at that point in time, it was very important, that the next CEO have P&L experience. And so I ran the biggest part of the business then, and I found out I loved it, which was great. But I think today, as I see the challenges that we're facing, as CEOs, I think P&L experience is important, but EQ is becoming so much more important as a skill set in C-suite and the CEO. It is working together. It is collaboration. It is really motivating and helping people see a path forward in a world which, quite frankly, is changing. And the change is only going to accelerate. And so also look for those opportunities where you can develop your leadership around really strong EQ and helping teams, actually move forward and helping organizations move forward and be successful.
Terrific, thank you. Pilar, I'd now like to turn to you and return to the topic of international experience. If you could share with us all the different countries you did live in, and then I know that for women who are juggling demanding careers and children, that it's obviously a challenge. If you could reflect on two things, how the international experience helped your career, but secondly, on a practical basis, how did you juggle children and a husband and moving to all these countries?
Yep, excellent question. So the number of countries, and I'm not going to do this chronologically, but from south to north and west to east, I have had the opportunity to work and live in Brazil, in Colombia, where I'm originally from, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, the US, Canada. I've also had the opportunity to work in Belgium, and I also lived in England. So multiple countries. I would say that's probably one of the best experiences that I've had, both professionally, personally, as a family. And it's made me the global leader who I am today, the attention to people, the understanding of different cultures, the understanding of effectively communicating when we have a town hall meeting, as we did this morning in our company, is about communicating to audiences who are global and effectively leading global teams. So definitely a great experience. But I would just say it is a challenge and it is a risk, especially when you move with your family thinking that it's going to be a 3-year assignment and it ended up being 1. And professionally, again, every country, every move brings a different set of challenges and changes from country, languages, markets, customers, industries. So stepping back for a moment, I would say learning capacity for me has been a strength, understanding that you can't lead from day one, even though you bring the expertise and the experiences from the previous country. It is important that you take the time to ask questions, to learn, to understand what works, what doesn't in a specific country, and to make sure that you gain the trust and the credibility from the team. Secondly, I would say adaptability is key. It is almost a survival skill when you move multiple times the way that we did. You have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you have to be patient, but also impatient with yourself, with your team, because at the end of the day, I think you said it well, Terry, everybody's expecting you to deliver, to perform, to work hard, and to make sure that you show that you can do it. So adaptability, resilience, flexibility, learning capacity is key. And maybe I would just say there's always a personal side to the story. In my case, my children are 18, 15 years old today, but we moved with them to every single country. And I remember one time when we were at the airport getting ready to move from one country to the other, and my kids were crying at the airport. They were like in tears. They had friends. They loved the school. They loved the playground. They used to play sports. And they looked at me and said, why do we have to move? What happens if we stay? And that was a harsh moment for me emotionally because I just thought, what have I done to my family? But fast forward, think about it. My kids will never remember that day. I still remember that day. And they're like, what? Were we sad? It was such a great move. Within a week, my son was speaking a different language. He came home and he's like, I love my new school. I love my friends. And that makes a big difference. As a family, I would say, certainly we love global cultures and experiences. We understand that the world is big, is global, is connected, and we need, or we understand the criticality of thinking about it as the world and not just the specific country. But again, it takes resilience. As a family, we're very, very close, the 4 of us, because we have moved a lot. But it's been probably one of the most wonderful experiences, both professionally and personally for us.
The children don't remember the trauma, but you still do. Thank you for sharing that with us, Pilar. Now, Dorothy, you're going to get one of the toughest questions, and that is, we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, I'm actually uttering those initials out loud, that it's become a political football. So some companies have withdrawn from DEI programs. Others have maintained them, but they don't talk publicly about them. And so I'd like you to weigh in on the role of DEI programs, what you've observed companies doing, and if you have any advice for the people from a variety of companies in our audience.
Yeah, that is a tough question. And I can tell you what I personally feel, but that personal feeling bleeds into my professional life. It can't not, because of who I am. Not only a woman, but a Black woman in this society. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you take those words simply by themselves, it's just generic, right? And we understand what the generic definition means to us. It is when these are put together that it becomes what you termed as that political football. I'm still scratching my head to understand the why of it, because it is what this country has historically been built on, is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So first it was the European settlers, but they were different. You had Irish, you had Scottish, you had Wales, you had individuals who were indentured servants and wealthy people. So that was diversity in and of itself. And then as this country continued to build, you brought in immigrants of color, whether they were forced here, like my ancestors, or they were shipped here thinking that it was a temporary thing, like many of the Asian population to build railroads. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is the backbone of this society, and all of a sudden it's this kind of contaminated thing that if you get too close, you might get swept into this, this whirlwind of chaos around it, and it is not chaos. It is, in fact, a principle that we should all lean in. And if I fail with leaning into this principle, I can sleep at night about it. The organization that I lead today, META, is absolutely about diversity. Our mission, our very mission, is helping BIPOC businesses succeed. What's wrong with that? It doesn't take away from other businesses from succeeding. It is just a focus. Like many corporations in this room, you have market segments, right? And you dial into the market segments and you build strategies and objectives around how to increase a market segment. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion, in my mind, is a business imperative. And it's not about really saying if you are for DE&I, you are against something. That's not the case. 75% of my staff are diverse. They come from 21 different countries. They speak 18 different languages. And they look like a lot of you in this room, all told. And that is not a bad thing, because you need diversity in thought, diversity in culture, diversity in spirit to really be successful. And Terry, you mentioned the notion that when you think about EQ, how in the world are you going to be effective and successful at EQ if you don't understand the people that you interact with, whether it's your staff, the leadership, or even your customers? We are living in a consumer society here, and the consumers are frankly as diverse can get. And if we are not focused on and paying attention to that as a business imperative, then I wonder, what are we trying to build as a future for this country when we ignore? So there's nothing wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if I fail, I'm going to fail on that principle.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'd now like to turn to a question for the entire panel. I'll start with Terry and then work back this way in terms of responses. So Terry, 2 years ago, I asked Land O'Lakes CEO Beth Ford to weigh in on advice to help more women reach the CEO position. And here is some of what Beth said. I tell women to shape your destiny. Don't be a passenger on your own life journey. We need to ask for what we want. Women should use their voices, take risks, and leverage their curiosity to continue to grow into top leadership roles. So Terry, I'd like to hear how you advocated for yourself during your career, and thinking back, in what context and in what ways did you ask for what you wanted in the workplace? And that's the same question for everybody on the panel. We'll hear from Terry first.
Okay, good question. So in my particular case, I'm going to take us back to when I was at American Express, and it's now also Ameriprise, and I was kind of working for both. And the first thing that happened in my career early is in 1993, Louise Parent was actually named the general counsel, and I was in the general counsel's office. And so for the first time in my career, I saw someone who looked like me in leadership, which was incredibly important. And so actually having first the idea that you could ascend and be a leader is probably the first step. And then as I continued to move around, because we were in financial services, and I've already shared that I'm a learner, so about every couple of years I had different responsibilities because I just enjoyed the idea of learning something. And that, again, just built my brand as an organization. And so when somebody said, would you be interested in doing this, I would say yes. And so I do think saying yes, even when it feels really uncomfortable, you don't know really what you're doing. And Linda and I have a shared dear friend, Hubert Joly, who he told me, gave me this advice when I became the CEO at Thrive. And he said, Terry, just get on the bike and start pedaling. He said, I know you don't know where you're going, but if you got movement going forward, you can course correct a lot easier than standing still. And so, that advice to me, basically has said, it has allowed me to basically say, okay, I'm going to be better at this tomorrow than I was the day before. And if you constantly push yourself and learn and build that reputation, people will take chances on you. And I think that was the most important thing, was moving from first general counsel to the president of the biggest business. That was a pretty big leap. Usually people have to start with little smaller businesses, and I was running the big business, but they had confidence in me. And then moving from that to CEO, again, first time CEO, the board said, hey, she's going to figure it out. She figured out all the other stuff, so what makes me think, she can't figure this out too? And it was really giving that opportunity, but it was because I took risks. I'm very self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and I also asked for help, and so I think that was a big part of it as well.
Linda.
So I started seeing early on some good examples of different types of CEOs, and saw CEOs who were very focused on results but not on the people. And I saw CEOs who were able to focus on both the results and the people. And I felt like there weren't enough of the latter, and there were too many of the former. And I've always loved working with teams. COVID was hard because I was running a food manufacturing company during COVID. That was not fun, but I learned a lot. But also, COVID was hard for me because I need people. I love working with teams. I love working with, whether I agree with them or not, I just love working with teams, and I love working with customers. And I really felt like that was critical to keep in the C-suite, is that recognizing that your teams and your customers are the most important people in the world. And so I got very inspired early on to move into the CEO role. Lots of people advised me against it. They're like, it's hard, don't do it. It's very lonely. But I was like, no, I think that we need more people that value people and results equally. And I decided when I was at Etsy, I was COO there, running everything revenue generating and customer facing. So I had a lot of the key parts of it, and I decided then and there that that was time for me to move into the CEO role. And so I resigned, and I actually was on stage at Fortune's Most Powerful Women Summit with 2 other COOs to talk about the COO role. And by the time we got to the panel, all of us had resigned from those roles. And they asked each person why they resigned, and one person was moving to a different division, one was doing something else, and they asked me, and I said, because I'm going to be a CEO. And they're like, oh, where are you going to be a CEO? I said, I don't know yet. And literally, the number of people that came up to me afterwards and said, I can't believe you said that on stage. What happens if you don't get a CEO role? I was like, I'm going to get a CEO role. And what does it matter? And by the way, the fact that I said it is a big part of why I was able to move into a CEO role, because I made it clear that that's what I wanted to do. So, and I've stayed in that. I mean, again, because I take on difficult companies and I take on companies that are in transition or something that's in a difficult situation, I've been asked many times, why do you keep doing it? And I keep doing it because, frankly, it is incredibly rewarding to see a team be able to achieve what they've always wanted to achieve, and customers get incredible products and incredible services. Like watching that transition and being a part of that transition, and watching some of the most talented people in the world in Sleep Number, come together and create something really impactful and powerful is better than anything else. So, so that's how I made that transition.
Pilar?
Yeah, I think in my case, ever since I joined the company, I've had the great opportunity and privilege to have a lot of mentors, coaches, and sponsors who took an active interest in my own personal and professional career and development. And to my surprise, within a year, maybe a year and a half after I joined the company, there was a senior executive in the company who retired, who took an active interest in my career. And I was working on a project for him, and he kind of started asking me, what do you want to do, and what's your dream job? And I was like, I don't think he's going to help me, I thought. But I said, hey, I want to be a general manager, which is something that typically from a strategy and business development group, you wouldn't be able to do right away. It requires commercial experience, product line manager. So I said it because I thought, well, he's asking, so I'm just going to answer the question. And he kind of laughed at me, or we laughed together. He said, huh, really? And I said, yeah, why not? If you're asking me, I'm telling you what it is. And he stayed close to me as a sponsor, as a mentor. And within a year, he came, picked up the phone and said, hey, Pilar, are you ready? And I said, for what? He said, I have a really cool opportunity as a general manager. You have to move to Canada, and the job is yours. And I didn't hesitate. I was one of those that said, absolutely, I'll take it. When do I have to move? And it was just the best first experience coming out from strategy and M&A into running a business, contained, small, but challenging, great customer, lots of challenges in the country at the moment. But we successfully stood up the business to be one of the most successful businesses for that customer today in the company. And I would just say, from my perspective, asking and being very clear about what you want is important. Case in point, what I said. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. Secondly, I would just say you have to focus on the work you have today. We've seen instances where people get a promotion today, and the next day they're like, okay, I'll do this, and then what is next? And that just doesn't go well. Companies are expecting you to perform, to deliver, to be an owner of the business, not a renter. You're not coming here to rent a business and leave in 6 months or in a year or 3. You have to own the business. You have to own the challenges. You have to own your team and demonstrate that you can deliver. And that makes a big difference. And within our company, we're a family-owned, privately owned company. Being a business leader of a global business is a dream. And that was my dream ultimately. So again, doing a good job, taking on the projects, the responsibilities that people didn't want to take. On December 28th, I was a strategy and M&A analyst, and our manager came to 10 of us and said, hey, we're buying a company. We need somebody who can be in Brazil on June the 3rd. So that was December 28th. I had just been married. I married 6 months before. And I said, I'll go. What a great opportunity to learn the country, the business, the industry. I'll do it. So again, in reflection is taking on those projects, opportunities, maybe roles that are not super fancy, exciting, but that will give you a great experience, that will help you demonstrate that you can do it. which ultimately led for me to lead the animal nutrition business in the company, 11,000 employees, multi-billion-dollar revenue business, 40 different countries, and that was one of the best experiences that I've had. So those are some of the reflections.
Great. So Dorothy, when you think back on your career, what would you like to share in terms of when you specifically asked for what you wanted and you really advocated for yourself?
Sure. So looking back on my career, even fresh out of college, one of the things that really bode well for me was really proving naysayers wrong. My mom used to tell me, "You are the stubbornest child I have." And I tell you, you can't do something, you're determined to prove me wrong. And that has been what I have done my entire life. It's built inside of me to do that. Certainly, being in a space where you are looking at opportunities to learn that eventually turn into professional promotions or climbing the professional ladder. I look for mentors, not just in us as women, but also men, and holding them accountable to really training and developing us. I once had an individual, when I got out of college, I was sitting there and he was from New York. And he moved to Montana, and I was working at the bank in Montana at the time, and he wanted to apply for a mortgage. And the mortgage application person asked if I could sit in on that mortgage application, and he said, sure. And when she stepped away, he says, are you Montanan? And I said, no, I'm from the South, and I'm just here. And he says, so what brings you here? I said, I just graduated from the University of Montana, and this is my first career job. And he says, oh, what did you graduate in? And I told him, liberal arts. And he looked at me, and he says, yeah, that and a quarter will buy you a cup of coffee. So you're lucky to be here. And I thought about that over and over again, and I said, well, okay, I'm not lucky alone, but I have skills, and I can prove it. And so proving people wrong about you, also being that lifelong learner from all walks of your journey. And it is about the journey, not the destination. It is about laughter, love, learning, and learning to let go. So there are several things that I think we as a people hold on to, thinking that we can get it right, but maybe making that decision to let go of something and give it to someone who can do it much better than you. And not be afraid that you are not the smartest person in the room. I never want to be that smartest person in the room, because I think I will miss out on so many other things. And so developing and elevating that EQ, because it's all about people and the people that surround you. And the people you want to be engaged with, being in that present moment so that you can take full advantage of that opportunity to learn something about yourself and your own failures, to learn something about others. And it is just pure joy for me to listen to the different journeys that we've all had in our lives, but we somehow end up in a similar place. And so that's what I take from my journey along the way. And I'm sure that I will be learning until I'm transitioning.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'd now like to pick up on the topic of networking, mentors, and sponsors. And so we often hear about the importance of networking, having mentors and sponsors to boost one's career. Pilar, you referred to a gentleman who you were quite candid with in terms of what you wanted. I know also that your former CEO, Dave McLennan, that he is someone who focused on developing your career and others. And so I was wondering if you want to weigh in on how Dave McLennan approached diversity in your company and also how he served as a sponsor for you.
Yep, excellent question. I don't know if he's in the room. He may not be, but he is certainly a great sponsor for many people who are here in the room and a lot of people within our company. I would just say, to me, there's a clear difference between a mentor and a coach and a sponsor. A mentor is somebody who can give you feedback A coach is somebody who can give you feedback on your own career and can help you improve your professional career. And a sponsor is somebody who advocates on your behalf when you're not in the room. Somebody who's going to take that risk is somebody who's going to believe you can do it, even when you don't believe you can. And I would say Dave McLennan, our former CEO, has been a great sponsor for me and for many people in the company. It is not just understanding my strengths, my experiences, but also my potential. And it's also giving me the confidence when these 2 or 3 opportunities came to me, and I looked at him like, me? And he said, yeah. I mean, if the company believes you can do this, if the company and your supervisor, your manager are giving you this opportunity, you go for it. So is that confidence, is that consistent relationship, open feedback and trust that you develop with that sponsor that helps over time. And I would say something that my sponsors have indicated to me is I've moved a lot internationally. And a lot of people just move away and never stay in touch with their sponsors and mentors, and I never did that. When I was in Brazil or in Europe, every time that I came back to Minneapolis, I made a point to meet with my mentors and sponsors in person. And to this day, there's a lot of people who are not even in the company anymore, or people that I've met over time that I stay close to, because you will likely need a sponsor and a mentor when you don't think about it. And you don't want to wait for that moment to say, hey, I haven't stayed in touch with Sue or Mary or John. Don't wait for that moment. Stay connected, stay close to them, and develop that trustworthy relationship. Because today, me as a sponsor, the relationship goes both ways. So I get a lot of feedback from my mentees. I get a lot of support from a diversity, equity, and inclusion list. I think that's a topic that all of us are super interested in. And I learn a lot from my mentees, younger people in the company who are making me say things that I don't. So I can apply that empathy when I think about situations that I face as a leader today.
Great. I'm going to ask one more question about a sponsor, and I'm going to do a jump ball. So either Terry, Linda, or Dorothy can answer this. But first, I just wanted to acknowledge Janine Rivet. Are you in the audience? I know that you had registered. Janine, where are you? What? She just left, but she was here? The reason why I cite Janine is she was CEO of 3 business units of United Health Group, and she herself had many, many sponsors throughout her career, and she has done an incredible job in being a sponsor for many other women. And so whether Terry, Linda, or Dorothy takes this question, I think a lot of people in the audience want to know, how do I get a sponsor? Or does a sponsor come to you? Who would like to take that question? Dorothy?
So you never know where you would find that appropriate sponsor. And it's not just in the professional world. My sponsors have been people outside of banking. It's been individuals who have held leadership roles in corporations that I probably never even considered being in their space or their circle. And the reason that they became sponsors is because we volunteered on several boards of nonprofit organizations throughout the city, or the state for that matter, sitting on the board of the Greater Twin Cities United Way with Richard Davis, and I count Richard Davis as clearly one of my sponsors in the banking environment and how I got on the U.S. Bancorp board. Being on the University of Minnesota Foundation Board of Trustees, you find people who are willing and excited about spending time and engaging with you. The Minneapolis Foundation, I had an individual walk up to me, and he was a CEO of Dane Rauscher, and he says, you know, I really like you, and I want to be your sponsor. I mean, boy, landed right in my lap, and you don't say no to that opportunity. So there are other places, and I would suggest to you that it's not all about your profession, but it's about where you find yourselves at the table, and people taking a concerted interest in who you are, that you entertain the idea, and then just go out for the benefit of wanting to know more about them. They're human beings too. They didn't get there from birth. in their positions. And so they are very humbly excited when you take an interest in who they are as an individual.
Thank you. I just want to alert the audience. I'm going to ask one more question of our panel, and then we will turn to the audience for some questions. And so I will pose this question to both Linda and to Terry, and that is, if a woman is early in her career or mid-career, and one day she would like to serve on a public company board, as all four of you do, what is the best advice that you have for them in terms of what kind of experience they should have? We'll start with Terry and then go to Linda.
So I think mid-career and looking for a position in a public company board, I do think paying attention to the shifting skill sets that are now required of board members and what public company boards are looking for. It is changing, and so positioning yourself so you're acquiring the skill sets that are important. It's obvious digital is a big deal right now. If you're, and we all need to understand digital and AI, and we need to be really curious about that. And so, I would encourage people to really lean in there, because that will be an emerging skill set. I think public company boards aren't looking for experts. They're looking for people with good critical thinking skills, good business judgment, curiosity, and a portfolio of experiences that you can bring that into the boardroom.
Linda?
I completely agree. I think that having that well-rounded operational capability and leadership capability and understanding is incredibly critical. I'm actually going to tie the question you just asked before a little bit with this question as well, because I think that seeking out boards that are looking and understanding exactly what expertise fits the puzzle is important. You don't want a board that's thinking about just a quota or some number they're trying to hit, or I need X number of CEOs, Y number of CFOs, et cetera, on my board. And I remember when I got the call for the Ralph Lauren board, the first thing I asked was, well, what exactly are you looking for? I already felt confident that it wasn't a quota because they already had long-serving women on their board, and they said, we want global, we want digital, we want marketing. I was like, great, that's me. So they were very clear about what they were looking to get on the board, but I do think boards have evolved. And the reason I say I'm going to tie these together is I actually think the new version of mentoring, different from sponsorship, I agree that these are all different. The new version of mentoring is reverse mentoring. I have more mentors who work for me than I used to work for. And that's an incredible opportunity for someone who's earlier in their career to think about how they might get the connections that would get them onto boards eventually, because the world is changing very fast. AI, everything else is happening, and frankly, most of the people with the knowledge of how that world is changing are people who are, 5, 10, 15 years out of college, so into their career. So I'm constantly trying to figure out what I don't know yet or what I need to know. And so if you are early in your career, what are some of the things that you can bring up in the organization to help create that resilience for the teams that you work with and the senior leaders that you work with? Because those are the people who will help you find some of those board seats in the future. As you sort of come together. So that's another path that you can think about. But again, I'll also reiterate what I said before. Just make your intent known. Don't be afraid to say what you want, because people may not know that you want to be on a board eventually if you don't actually bring it up. So gather the skill sets, but also become the expert, become the advocate for that broader set of what does the next generation need to know when they're thinking about how companies are run.
Thank you, Linda. And please raise your hand if you have a question, and someone will get to you with a microphone. At table 5, someone is raising her hand if someone has a mic. If you have someone ready to go, wave, because I'm not seeing anyone with a mic next to the person. Or Table 5 here, the woman in the gold top. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and for all this. Like, I'm jotting down all this notes and it's just all gold, so thank you. But my question for you is, as a leader, what is one habit or mindset shift that most accelerated your career early on?
Who would like to take that mindset shift?
I'll maybe start. I think curiosity. So being curious and constantly, asking questions, and it does come back to learning. But I think curiosity is really important, and that has accelerated my career.
And another question. Right in the middle here.
Several in the back.
Oh, okay. And then if someone can get to the back with a microphone. Yeah, if you could keep your hands raised in the back so they know where to go. No, we'll go to you, Connor, with a question here.
We've spoken a lot today about asking for what you want. We know that asking for what you want doesn't always mean you're going to get it. So when you receive that no, how are you reframing that, and how is that motivating you to continue to ask and continue to advocate for yourself?
Who would like to take the what happens if the person says no?
I mean, I can start on that one. It happens a lot. People are going to say no all the time. And if possible, I always try to figure out why. Why did you say no? What can I learn from this? And only you can decide whether or not it's a valid no. Many of them are, and you learn a lot, and you might change something, you might adjust something. But in other times, you're sort of like, well, the best stories come about perseverance and just going after it over and over again. When I took on that mission of finding my CEO role, I had a lot of people calling me saying, oh, we really need a COO. And I'm like, that's great. Let me recommend these 4 other incredible women who could do that job. That's not what I'm going for. And so it does get hard after a while, because you're like, well, I know I'm good at this. I know I can do this, but I really want to do this other thing, and it becomes very tempting. And so you need to always try to understand why they're saying no, and then use that as information for learning for yourself of what you're going to internalize and what you're not going to internalize, and decide how that contributes to the eventual yes that you're going to get.
And we can take one more question, a question from the back.
Hi, my name is Armitha Pelstrom, founder and CEO of Pelstrom Consulting Group. I just want to first acknowledge you all up there. You have been the beacon of light. You have been an inspiration for all of us, including myself. And you have no idea what legacy you have led. So I just want to thank you, and let's give them a round of applause. If you could say one thing to your 8-year-old self, and then to your 80-year-old self, what would it be?
So, Armitha, that's a really great question. So, as an 8-year-old, I probably would say, you need to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit more as you are gaining ground and growing into a career or a profession. Take more risks. I think any number of us on this panel would say, yeah, I took risks, but maybe not enough. I would be much further than I am. To my 80-year-old self is, I don't know, for those of you in the room, if any of you would probably remember, there used to be a tonic called Geritol. And my 80-year-old self will tell myself today, you need more Geritol. Because the passion does not equal the energy that you need to fulfill that passion. So figure it out.
That's awesome. That's really well said. I would just say to my 8-year-old self, I would say, be more patient. I am optimistically impatient, so I would just say, be a little bit more patient, and don't be so harsh on yourself. I'm too harsh on myself. So I would just say, yeah, watch out for these two. And to my 80-year-old self, I would just say, I hope you have expressed gratitude to those mentors, sponsors, mentees, and people that have taken an active interest in you, as well as your family. And maybe somebody that I didn't mention today is my current boss, the CEO of Cargill, Brian Sykes. He is an amazing friend, sponsor, mentor for me and many people in the company. And oftentimes I think, we have to be grateful. We have to express gratitude and appreciation for everybody who's supported us, taking a risk on us, giving us an opportunity, advocated for us. And I know that Brian is also that for me, and especially my family. I would just hope that I have thanked my parents, my husband, and my 2 children for everything they have done, because it is a team effort.
Well, I would like to express gratitude for this panel, and I would like the audience to please give them a round of applause. You can stay on the stage. And I'm now turning it over to Shelley Elmore, who is going to make some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Pollard. Thank you, Terry. And thank you, and thank you, Liz. This is a great conversation. Lots of great nuggets. Lots of people writing notes. So thank you. I would also like to do a final thank you to St. Catherine's University, Bridgewater Bank, ZRG Partners, BTM Global, Helmuth & Johnson, the agency at MSP, and iBobs. All of those companies have made this a great event and has allowed us to keep strengthening the pipeline. Before we wrap up, I want to share a little information about an upcoming Twin Cities business event. On July 22nd, we will be inducting our 2026 group into the Minnesota Business Hall of Fame. And this year, I just want to note that there are 2 amazing women on that list, which would be Beth Leonard of Eisner Amper and Beth Wozniak of nVent. So let's all come and cheer them on. So before we head out, I want to ask the panelists and the honor roll to come back to the stage for a group photo. And then on behalf of Twin Cities Business and all the brands under MSP Communications, our parent company, I want to thank you for coming. As you walk out today, please go to iBobs, buy some new glasses. Also grab a copy of Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then you can read it. And then there will be a very cute tote bag from our courtesy of the agency at MSP. So everyone have a good afternoon and do good things. Thank you.